These are the 10 most likely players to win the MVP next season. And starting off at number 10, I've got Donovan Mitchell. And yes, this feels like a slight drop compared to last year, where he actually finished 5th in the MVP race after leading the Cavaliers to their most successful regular season since the departure of LeBron James. That alone does make this placement feel like a downgrade, but there's a real story behind it. During the regular season, Mitchell averaged 24 points per game on 44, 37, 82 shooting splits over just 31 minutes a night. Numbers that look a lot lower than some of the other team-leading stars because Cleveland leaned hard into a balanced team-first scoring approach. But then the playoffs hit. Injuries piled up, and the Cavs had no choice but to put their offense back on Donovan's shoulders. He exploded for 29.6 points per game, but the scoring came with a drop in efficiency, about 33% from deep and 44% overall, which once again showed us the ceiling when the offense becomes too Donovan-centric. So next season, Cleveland faces a massive decision. Let Mitchell play more minutes and have more usage, or return to the team-first approach that made them so dangerous all throughout the regular season. For me, I think they're going to go back to the team approach, and a massive reason behind that is the growth we saw from Evan Mobley. Mobley looks primed to take a major step forward after posting roughly 18.5 points per game, 9.3 rebounds, 3.2 assists, and 1.6 blocks per game, while shooting 60% from the field last year. Numbers that actually understate just how valuable he actually was to the team's success last year. He won the Defensive Player of the Year, and by the season's close, a lot of people were already treating him as Cleveland's best player. Because of that, even if the Cavs do improve next season and remain the favorites to come out of the East, I still expect Mitchell to slip down the MVP conversation simply because it's not going to be as obvious that he's the unquestioned face of the team. No disrespect to Donovan Mitchell, it's more of a nod to Evan Mobley. From an individual standpoint, Mitchell isn't necessarily going to get worse next year. He's just going to be asked to do less again because the roster around him is finally good enough to carry some more load. Sliding in at number 9, I've got Jalen Brunson of the New York Knicks. And this one actually feels like a small individual upgrade from last year. Brunson finished tied for 10th in MVP voting last season, so putting him at 9 reflects a slight move upward. He missed quite a sizable chunk of time last year, finishing the regular season on exactly the 65 game threshold. So with a cleaner bill of health next season, knock on wood, he would already go higher in the voters' minds. What doesn't change though is the core of his game. Brunson is still one of the smoothest mid-range craftsmen in the league, a dependable pull-up and capable three-point shooter who's quietly become arguably one of the most clutch finishers in basketball. Last season, he averaged 26 points per game with a 55% effective field goal mark in the regular season. Numbers that scream high-quality scoring and efficiency. Then, when the playoffs arrive, he tends to get even better, as he averaged 29.4 points per game in last year's postseason. The kind of playoff riser that coaches and teammates absolutely lean on. But where the MVP conversation does get tricky is context. I think the Knicks are going to be better than last season with a fresh coach, a deeper, more versatile bench that should see minutes and shots shared more fluidly under the new Mike Brown system, which would naturally lower Brunson's raw field goal attempts down from 18.5 last season to probably around 16 or 15. But the trade-off is actually better than it looks, because with more threats around him, Brunson's probably going to have more space to work into, which could keep his efficiency and impact really high. Put simply, Brunson's case for MVP is built on elite regular season production, and his his ability to put the entire offense on his back late in games. However, the reason I have him at 9 and not higher on this list is because he tends to save his very best for the postseason. So even though he's one of the most consistently dangerous guards in the league, I personally can't see him getting much higher than number 9. Now, in at number 8, I've got Kevin Durant, now suiting up for his new team, the Houston Rockets. Last year with Phoenix, KD was essentially left out of the MVP conversation. Not because of his own play, but because the Suns were simply not good enough. Individually, he was still phenomenal, putting up 26.6 points per game on an absurdly efficient 60% effective field goal shooting. Numbers that very few players in history can ever touch. But in the NBA, MVP has always been about more than just individual numbers. Team success certainly matters. You can't win the award on a mediocre squad, and that's exactly what kept him from contention last year. This upcoming season, though, feels really different. Durant walks into Houston, a team that was already the second seed in the West last season, and his arrival instantly gives them a clear identity on the offensive side of the floor. Last season, the Rockets had moments where it felt like they weren't quite sure who their go-to scorer was, between Jalen Green, Alperen Şengün, and at times Amen Thompson. It was constantly shifting, but with Durant in the fold, that uncertainty is gone. Everyone knows who the focal point is going to be, and it gives Houston exactly what they were missing: a reliable shot creator who can close out tight games and deliver consistent scoring at every level. Now, I don't think KD's actually going to win the award, which is why he's down here at 8, but I do believe he's going to force himself back into that conversation. If Houston plays up to their potential, they're going to be elite defensively, and with Durant at the helm offensively, a 60-win season is very realistic. If that happens, there's no way the MVP voters will be able to ignore him. Even if his averages stay roughly the same as they did last year, Durant's efficiency and his ability to slide in seamlessly to any system makes him one of the best plug-and-play superstars the league has ever seen. Give him the ball, let him get to his 2-dribble pull-up, and it's going to be basically automatic, no matter the situation. So while I don't think he climbs up to the top 5 for MVP, Kevin Durant is going to be right back in the mix next season. And more importantly, his presence makes the Houston Rockets a legitimate championship threat. Now, coming in at number 7, I've got Cade Cunningham of the Detroit Pistons. Last season was the first time Cade actually had a real stretch of health after struggling to stay on the floor through his first 3 years in the league, including that brutal 2023 season where he managed just 12 games. Playing 70 games last year made all the difference, not just for his own rhythm and consistency, but for the Pistons team as a whole, with better floor spacing around him also, which allowed him to actually showcase his playmaking gifts. Cunningham took Detroit from being a bottom-feeding team to a legitimate playoff threat in one single offseason. In fact, the Pistons became the first team in NBA history to ever triple their win total from the previous season, and Cade Cunningham was no doubt the main reason behind that turnaround. Individually, he was brilliant. Cunningham averaged 26.1 points per game on 52% effective field goal shooting, while also finishing 7th in MVP voting, and I believe he's going to be right back in that same range again this year. Detroit didn't exactly make a massive splash this offseason, but their young core looks set to continue to improve. And everything still starts and ends with Cade. His poise in just his 4th year was absolutely remarkable to watch, especially in clutch situations. And his playmaking really popped, averaging 9.1 assists per game while leading the Pistons to a surprisingly competitive first-round series against New York. Now, the truth is, I don't think the Pistons will be a high enough seed to put Cade up into the top 5. For me, I feel like Detroit probably needs to finish as a top 3 seed in the East for that to happen, given how little respect that conference has at the moment. That being said, Cade's ceiling is so high that if he does put together a season where he's averaging something like 30 points, 10 assists, and doing it all on elite shooting, he could absolutely push himself into that upper tier. Ultimately, a lot of his MVP chances depends on how quickly the younger guys around him continue to improve. Still though, just for year 4, Cade Cunningham has already proven that he belongs in the MVP conversation, and the best part about it is that he's only just getting started. Now, coming in at number 6, I've got Victor Wembanyama. And yes, even though he'll only be entering season number 3, I still think he belongs this high in the MVP conversation for next season. Last year, his season was unfortunately cut short at just 46 games due to blood clots found in his right shoulder, which meant he didn't meet the 65-game threshold to qualify for postseason awards. But if he did, I genuinely think he could have cracked top 10 in MVP voting. His production was already that good in year 2, posting 24.3 points, 11 rebounds, and a league-leading 3.8 blocks per game on 56% effective field goal shooting. Those are flat-out incredible numbers for a second-year player. And when you pair that with his overall impact, it's no exaggeration to say that he's already one of the most dominant two-way forces in the league. I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again. The Defensive Player of the Year award next season feels like his to lose going forward, as I don't think there's going to be a single player who will shape the defensive side of the floor more than Wemby over the next decade. Now, the MVP historically is an offensive-driven award, and defensive dominance alone usually isn't enough to win it. But that's the crazy part, because with Wemby, that might not actually matter, because he was remarkable offensively as well. And there's a very real world where he ends up taking his scoring from 24 points up to 27 a night, bumps up his three-point shooting from 35% to 38%, and continues to grab rebounds with the best of them, while leading the league in blocks again. And in that scenario, Wemby could certainly win the MVP. No question about it. The challenge though, just like with Cade in Detroit, is that the Spurs have to win enough games. I think San Antonio would need to be at least the 6th seed in the West for him to have a realistic chance. And as much as I believe in his individual talent, I'm not quite sure San Antonio is ready to take that big of a leap just yet. That being said, things have changed for the roster coming into this season. With the addition of De'Aaron Fox, who quietly nearly led the league in scoring just a couple of seasons ago, Wemby finally has a high-level running mate. The combination of those two could absolutely be enough to push San Antonio up the standings. Last year, without Wemby, the Spurs were awful, posting a -8 net rating. But with him on the floor, they jumped up to +2.3. And then, when you add a potential Fox-Wemby combination into the mix, I could realistically see them being a +5 net rating team next year, which is kind of the number that usually belongs to a playoff team. The big question though is whether or not that improvement is going to be enough for Victor to take home the MVP at the season's close. For me, that is still certainly up in the air. But if the MVP was purely about individual impact and not team success, then I think Wemby would certainly be top 5 and probably top 3. But because the MVP has always been tied so heavily to team success, I do have him just outside of the top 5 here at number 6. Now, coming in at number 5, I've got Anthony Edwards. And it feels crazy to say that just after 5 seasons in the league, he's already established himself as a bona fide top 10 player. At only 22 and 23 years of age, he was able to lead Minnesota to back-to-back Western Conference Finals appearances, something that very few players in the history of the league can say they've done at the same age. The Michael Jordan comparisons might feel heavy, and whether or not he can ever actually reach that level is still to be determined. But what is not up for debate is that Edwards is clearly one of the league's best scorers. Last season, he finished 7th in MVP voting, putting up 27.6 points, 5.7 rebounds, 4.5 assists, and 1.2 steals per game on 55% effective field goal shooting. The Timberwolves did have a bit of a rocky start to their season, but by the end of it, they were really surging, taking out a Lakers squad led by Luka and LeBron in round 1, and then toppling the Warriors in round 2 to make it back to the Western Conference Finals. But it was there, against Oklahoma City, that Anthony Edwards hit the first true crossroads of his career. The Thunder's defense was relentless, too quick, too precise, and too disciplined, forcing Anthony Edwards to confront the one hole in his game that's keeping him from the absolute top tier, his playmaking. With OKC rotating perfectly, sending pressure to him at every angle, Edwards struggled to read the floor quick enough, and when he couldn't adjust, his production fell off a cliff. Minnesota's run ended in just 5 games. And while it was certainly a humbling experience for Edwards, it was a necessary reminder of the area in his game that he has to evolve. That's why this coming season feels so pivotal. Edwards is already an elite scorer. He could put up 28 a night on great efficiency without a question. But if he can take that next step as a playmaker, potentially pushing his assists up to 7 a game and genuinely becoming someone who can read a defense and make all of his teammates better, then not only does his individual MVP case skyrocket, but the Timberwolves as a team become far more dangerous. Their defense is already good enough to win a chip, with Rudy Gobert, Jaden McDaniels, and their physical style. It's the offense that's lagging behind, and it all starts with Anthony Edwards being able to see the floor better, being able to bend defenses with more than just his scoring. If that improvement comes, then Minnesota could rise even higher in the standings, and Edwards could find himself at the center of the MVP debate, not just as a candidate, but as a legitimate favorite. Now, coming in at number 4, I've got Luka Doncic, and honestly, this feels like the year where he could actually finally put it all together and win it. Last season, he was the headline to one of the most wild stories the league has ever seen. On a completely random Saturday night, Luka was shockingly traded from the Dallas Mavericks to the Los Angeles Lakers, a move that stunned everybody. And while the trade itself was headline grabbing, Luka's actual time in LA was a little uneven. He missed about 3 months due to injury, and when he returned, he just wasn't in peak shape. Still, even a slightly out of shape Luka is still better than 99% of the league, as he put up 28.2 points per game on 53% effective field goal shooting during his time in the purple and gold. Now though, the narrative has completely flipped. Luka looks like he's getting into the best shape of his career this offseason, and if you ask me, a lot of that is fueled by spite. After Dallas repeatedly called him out publicly for being overweight after the trade, this feels like a full-blown revenge season is loading for Luka. Doncic isn't the type to take criticism lightly. He's fiery, he talks trash constantly, and most importantly, he's got the talent level to back it all up. That combination makes him one of the most dangerous players alive when he's motivated, and next season, he'll be the most motivated we've ever seen him. I really believe there's a world where Luka averages a 30-point triple-double next season. I'm not joking. That is the ceiling with this guy I'm talking about. And if he gets anywhere near that, he's going to drag the Lakers up the standings almost single-handedly. Outside of course, LeBron James, who's still incredible, the Lakers roster is relatively thin, so Luka's production is going to be front and center. If he puts up those kinds of numbers and keeps LA in the hunt towards the top of the Western Conference, it will nearly be impossible to not have him firmly winning the MVP next season. And honestly, if you're looking for a true value pick to win the award, then Luka Doncic is going to be your guy. Now, coming in at number 3, I've got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And honestly, this one feels like the safest pick of them all. SGA is coming off one of the most legendary individual seasons we've seen in recent memory, winning the MVP, Finals MVP, the scoring title, and of course, delivering an NBA championship to OKC. That alone makes him an automatic top 3 candidate heading into next year. He just dragged the second youngest team ever to a title, and he wasn't just a piece of it. He was absolutely the leader, averaging 29.9 points per game on 50% effective field goal shooting over the playoffs, while breaking records left and right. Performances like his 15 points in the final 5 minutes of Game 4 against Indiana are the kinds of performances performances that are going to live on forever. Last season wasn't just great, it was career defining for SGA. And the scary part about all of it is how he's still got plenty of room to grow. The biggest reason why I think Shai's MVP case could be even stronger this coming year is because of the supporting cast. As we all know, winning plays a massive role in MVP voting, and last season, the Thunder managed their success despite being far from healthy. There were long stretches of the season where they didn't have both Isaiah Hartenstein and Chet Holmgren on the floor together. And at one point, for about 2 weeks, they had neither, forcing Jalen Williams to play center. Somehow, they just kept winning. Now imagine what this group looks like with a fully healthy roster and the potential for Chet Holmgren to take a massive offensive leap next season with more playing time. If that happens, OKC might genuinely flirt with a 70-win season, and if they get anywhere close to that with SGA leading the charge, it's going to be very hard for voters to deny him back-to-back MVPs. On top of the offense that SGA provides, he also gives you something that really separates him from some of the other MVP candidates. He's not a defensive liability. Now, I do think his defense can be overrated in the discourse at times, as he's not a lockdown guy, but he's certainly very capable on a one-on-one situation, and that really matters more than you think. Compare that to someone like Luka Doncic or even Nikola Jokic, who really don't give you a whole lot back the other way. That's a big advantage for SGA. Not only is he giving you elite scoring, but he's not giving you poor defense either, keeping more of the points that he just gave you to your overall margin. Then there's the raw numbers. Last season, Shai put up 32.7 points per game on nearly 60% effective field goal shooting. If he can bump that up even just slightly, let's say 33 or 34 points per night, and if Oklahoma City stays healthy enough to push towards 70 wins, then that is certainly a recipe for back-to-back MVPs. Shai has already cemented himself as one of the very best players on the planet, but next season could be the year he fully cements himself as the face of the NBA. In at number 2, I've got Giannis Antetokounmpo, and while Milwaukee aren't going to be on the same level as some teams like the Thunder or the Nuggets, that could actually play in Giannis's favor. Let's be clear, I don't think the Bucks are going to be terrible. I've seen some people suggest that they could finish as low as 8th, which just simply doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. Have a look at that conference. Can you really name me 7 teams that are going to be definitively better than Milwaukee? I don't think so. This is still a competitive basketball team, and Giannis is going to be the engine behind absolutely everything they do. The real reason his MVP case is going to skyrocket next year is because of the way Milwaukee plans to change their overall team approach. The blueprint is very simple. Put the ball in Giannis's hands more often. Let him run point forward and surround that with a heap of shooters. That way, he can collapse defenses, kick out for open threes, or attack the rim one-on-one, where nobody in the NBA can consistently get a stop. Giannis, as the primary playmaker, with all of the spacing around him, is a recipe for video game numbers. The only questions is just how much better their young guys actually get next year, and whether or not the team as a whole can maintain some defensive identity. Defense has always been Milwaukee's calling card since the dawn of the Giannis era, and with the addition of Miles Turner, their front court could very well be one of the best in the NBA, but it's the backcourt that tells a very different story. There is still plenty of question marks there, which is another reason why Giannis at point makes so much sense. We actually got to see a preview of this towards the end of last season, where Giannis ran point guard for a stretch to close out the regular season, helping the Bucks to rattle off 8 straight wins, with him putting up godlike stats. I mean, 32, 12, and 12 would certainly win you the MVP. And if we get that version of Giannis for a full season next year, even if those numbers are slightly lower, because that is ridiculous, we could be looking at the MVP right now. And if he does average a 30-point triple-double while leading the Bucks to say even just 45 wins, securing a top 4 seed out in the East, then I think it would well and truly push him into the MVP conversation once again. Now, coming in at number 1, the player I believe is the most likely to win the MVP next season, it's Nikola Jokic, which would make it 4 in his career. Over the last 5 seasons, seasons. Jokic won 3 MVPs while finishing top 2 in every season, which just shows you how dominant and consistent he's been. Last season, Denver's biggest weakness was their complete lack of a bench. That forced Nikola Jokic to have to log a career-high 37 minutes a night because they simply could not survive without him on the floor. But this season, things are shaping up very differently. The addition of Jonas Valanciunas finally gives Denver a reliable backup center for the first time in years, which could potentially see Jokic playing less minutes per night. That is going to be a great thing for him, as the Joker is going to be fresher and even more effective during his time on the court. And when the playoffs finally roll around, he would have logged far less minutes during the regular season, giving him extra legs for those legacy-defining performances we all know he can deliver. On top of that, Denver has added better shooters like Cam Johnson and Tim Hardaway Jr., plus the internal improvements we saw from Christian Brown and Aaron Gordon as three-point threats as well. That spacing gives Jokic countless options because defenders can't guard him one-on-one, and when they do send doubles, he'll happily pick you apart all game long with kick-out passes to capable open shooters. With this kind of a supporting cast, expect Denver to be even more unstoppable offensively next season. Another key factor is of course winning. Last season, Denver's record lagged far behind Oklahoma City, which was a big reason Jokic ultimately did not pick up MVP number 4. But with a better bench unit and more reliable depth, the Nuggets could realistically push for 60 wins next season. If that happens and Jokic maintains his usual all-time great numbers, it's going to be very difficult for the voters to not reward him. A 4th MVP would be massive for his legacy, cementing him as not only one of the best players from this era, but one of the greatest to ever touch a basketball. And honestly, with the way Denver looks right now, they could emerge as the team to beat next season. But there's so much more to unpack about the upcoming year. And if you want to know the top 10 most important things you need to know ahead of the 2026 NBA season, you can check out that full breakdown right now.